Andrew Dyer, and welcome to another edition of the Roundball Report, the only show in the area dedicated to highlighting the experts of the high school, college, and professional basketball teams which play in the Washington metropolitan area. And here with me again is my co-host, former Sidwell Friends at Duke University star, Janae Hayes. Janae, welcome.
Happy to be here. Got a new face in place. Can't wait to hear her perspective.
Yeah,
thank you for having
we've been
me.
talking about the craziness of the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. And we've got a young lady on the show who has an organization that she started called Competitive Edge EQ that's designed to help young people focus on the student aspect of being a student athlete. And that's Executive Director of Competitive Edge EQ, Lisa Leonard. Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, tell the folks about what Competitive Edge EQ is and what led you and your husband to found it.
Sure. So I certainly like to lead with the why first, because I think that's incredibly important. I am a D1 player. I played at Coppin State University. And so I remember my time of going through that recruiting process and how difficult it was for me to just navigate that space. But that's really not, that was what I led with initially, but really focusing in on Bianca, our daughter, watching her navigate the recruiting space was pretty interesting. Not to mention she was slammed with, like most of the kids now, slammed with the pandemic and so forth. So how do we navigate this space in a different way was pretty interesting to observe. And so one of the things that I noticed with Bianca specifically was that we had to really, really hone in on her emotional space, her emotional capacity, making sure that she was okay emotionally as she navigated the space from being a pretty high level player to now transitioning to another team. So that literally knocked the wind out of her. And I want to keep that part really generic right this minute, but her navigating that space knocked the wind out of her. And so with years of observing student athletes across the country, of doing a whole lot of research, we really planted our feet in the emotional intelligence space, because we believe certainly that if kids have, student athletes in particular, have a high emotional intelligence, if they have the strategies, if they have the tools to pull from when they're having those moments of struggle, then they have no choice but to perform at a higher level. We lead with academics though. So I'm glad, Janae, I'm glad I heard you say that part of it. I know a lot of times we talk about student athlete, but we lead specifically with academics. So our belief is that if student athletes have a high emotional IQ, or EQ is what we call it, then they can perform at the highest peak in the classroom. They can perform at the highest peak on the court, on the field, or so forth. So that's why all of our programming is rooted in the emotional intelligence space. So pretty much most of it was really born out of a little bit of my experience, because that's like 30 years ago, and I'm saying it out loud, but that's a long time ago. And in a large portion of it, it was really rooted in observing Bianca. Bianca was really our first EQ kid, and helping her to navigate the emotional space that comes with being at least traveling through the recruiting process. And so one of the things that we always said was, listen, at the end of the day, what do you want to do with your life? Right? And I think we may get into that, but we backward map. So what do you want to do at the end? And let's focus in on that. And now let's plan, let's map out how do you get to that end point. Basketball for her is really a tool to get to the end point.
When you say emotional intelligence, how is that quantified? And what exactly does that mean?
So a couple things. One of the things that we make sure that our kids, every student that enters our program, they do a couple of assessments. So one is I don't know if I even should say it here because I don't want nobody taking my stuff, but so we have 3 assessments that we use. I'll say that.
Okay.
That measures student athletes' emotional capacity, where they are right at that moment, but also measures their personality, that also measures their learning style. And so we use that first to inform how we move forward. All of our kids literally have portfolios. And so those 3 assessments that we use are the basis to help them navigate through that space. So one of the things that we do, we have what we call our ACL program. So normally when you hear ACL, what do you think about?
Your knee.
Your knee, right? But for us, our ACL program means adaptability, communications, and leadership development. And so we believe that young student athletes have to be able or have to learn the tools necessary to navigate any space that they go into that is new. They have to be able to adapt almost quickly. You know, even when you walk into a gym and you see the other team and they're 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'10", and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Instantly, you should have the tools to be able to switch gears. It doesn't matter how tall they are. Let's focus in. Let's focus in on what we can do, what my strong points are, and so forth. So young people have to be able to adapt to situations. They have to be able to adapt to people that don't necessarily look like them. That's important. They have to be able to adapt to new surroundings. And so we do a whole lot of work in that space of just teaching them how to navigate that space. The other part is communication. Now, on the basketball side, you hear coaches screaming, talk on defense, right? And that's low-hanging fruit. That really is. I know for coaches who are listening that this is something that you desperately want your kids to do. But from my lens, the question is, why aren't we communicating? And then let's dig into that, the why we're not communicating, what keeps us from doing that. And now let's build the tools to be able to communicate. But it's not just about being on the court. It's also in the classroom. So you have to be able to advocate for yourself. You have to be able to talk through why my grade looks like this and what can I do in order to improve my grade. Not wait until the last minute and then realize I'm in a sling and I need to figure out what to do. And now you're actually functioning off of desperation. The other part is leadership. I think every student athlete has the capacity to lead. But the question is, what kind of leader are you? Everyone is not an in-your-face scream, everyone's not that, right? Everyone doesn't lead vocally. Bianca was one who could literally be in a group of young ladies and they would just, they want to know her opinion. They want to know what they should do. And so we had to kind of work her through what that style of leadership can be and what it is. And now leverage that when you go into other situations where you have to adapt, where you have to communicate, and now you also have to lead. You should be able to leverage those skills. And so our kids go through 12-week modules of each one of those, and then they're assessed quarterly in each one of those modules.
Now, Lisa, you talked about the adaptability, and we've all been through the craziness of the AAU circuit. But talk about how you're trying to educate them, not take the dream away, but educate them on the percentage of realizing that dream and preparing them for their whole life. Yes,
so I'm glad you asked that question, Andrew, because the truth is, let's just take Prince George's County, right? There are 30,000 kids, over 30,000 kids playing a sport. Yeah, there are over 30,000 kids in Prince George's County alone playing a sport, right? So even if you look at that, the numbers that's scary. But then when you think about the amount of D1, D2, D3 schools, and Andrew, we talked about that, that's a whole nother conversation that we can touch. But I think it's really important for us to consider the numbers, considering that only 6%, if you're playing D1, D2, or D3, you're part of the 6%. But when you think about 30,000 kids and then you pare that down to basketball, the chances of you going pro, let's leave it there, going pro are slim to none. But here is our theory. I never want to douse a dream of a student athlete. But what if you could be prepared for the pro level and you can be prepared for the academic level? What if you could lead with saying, hey, listen, I have 12 academic scholarships, but I'm also talking to 4 coaches who are looking at me to come to their school. The strength in that alone puts you in a different position. It puts you in a position of power. And so we lead with this idea that, yes, you can hone your skills. Bianca, up 6 o'clock in the morning, working out 3 times a day. She did all of that. But the other part of it is, as much time as she spent working out, she spent more time academically making sure that she was prepared. And that's for every student athlete. I think if you lead in the academic space, thinking about what it is you're preparing for. High school, you're preparing for something. Well, let's have the conversation. What do you want to be? Well, listen, I want to be an engineer. Well, that in itself changes the dynamics of the conversation, because now we're talking about, hold it, so what math are you taking? That we have to have that conversation. You can't wait until the end and say, hey, I want to be an engineer. But the other part of it, and it's not even a but, and the other part of it is, if you want to be an engineer, but you're not strong in math, ta-da, competitive edge. Because now we're closing the gaps in your math so you can set yourself up to take the higher level math. It can't be that, well, listen, they're not good at math, so we're going to put them on this track. Mm-hmm. No. We're going to ensure that the gaps are closed so they're now able to perform at the highest level. So now they can take those classes that are needed for the end result. And the end result is being an engineer. Both things can happen at the same time. They can happen in tandem. And we want to make sure that we want to expand the conversation, not, minimize it to just sport, but expand the conversation around sports and academics. You can do both. You can spend the same amount of time or even more time in academics that you do in athletics, but you have to also make some choices about, okay, wait a minute. So what level do I want to play? And in this particular county, there's a whole lot of conversation around playing with, certain AAU programs, because if you play with this AAU program, you're going to get all the looks that you need. But the truth is only a certain amount of kids, again, we're talking 30,000, only a certain amount of kids can play with those programs. So what do we do for the other kids?
Now, Lisa, we've got a couple minutes left. So tell the folks about who you have helping you on this journey and about the big events you guys have coming up.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to, of course, my husband, that's like, I can't shake him if I wanted to. He's like a 1969 Buick. I can't shake him. And I love the journey with him, though. I love him for, us working through creating competitive edge. But I am going to tell you, Andrew, Darlene may not want me to say this, but Darlene is one of our chairs for our event coming up in June, and she is kicking butt. So we have her on the board. Warren Dole, who will be leaving us, going to China to train the Olympic team. He's on the board. Chico Church from Georgetown is on the board. So we have quite a few people. Of course, Shawan Robinson. Shawan is the principal in Montgomery County. I shouldn't have started naming people because I'm gonna forget folks, but we have a dynamic group of people who are working with us to build the organization. My focus is specifically around creating an organization that has ultimate impact. That's the focus. And so we want all smart, brilliant people at the table that's not afraid to shake things up a little bit.
Lisa, I have one more question for the age group, because it sounds like it's catered for the high school student, but it seems like it could be very impactful for those college students or maybe post-grad students that are still trying to find their way, whether it be professionally in athletics or professionally into the workaday world.
So our entry points are 7th through 10th grade. Mm-hmm. Right now, our entry points are 7th through 10th grade. We support 7th through 12th, but the entry point is 7th through 10th. And then, of course, we will follow all of our student athletes to the completion of their post-secondary careers. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you brought that up, Janae, because one of the conversations that I had, and I'll be 10 seconds. One of the conversations that I had with our pro-brand ambassador, Jasmine Thomas, she plays for the Connecticut Sun. We had this conversation around the game being over. When the air comes out of the ball, what's next? And that's all the more reason for the work that we do. So the other part of the work that we do is expose our kids to STEM careers in sports. And so why is that? Because yes, the air comes out of the ball. And as Jasmine said, at some point, you've got to do something new. You've got to do something else, and you've got to reinvent yourself. We want them to have those thoughts right now as they're planning their career out.
All right, Lisa, thanks so much for being with us. Give the folks the website and when the event is going to be.
Absolutely. So to find out about what we have going on, of course, you can follow us across all social media platforms, Competitive Edge EQ across all media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Our website is CompEdEQ, so CompEdEQ.org. On the website, you also can find out about our events that's coming up on June 18th, Monte Carlo night at Woodmore Country Club. And so Darlene is a rock star with that. She's helping us to kind of pull this thing off. And so again, if anyone wants more information, they certainly could reach out to via the website to me directly.
All right, great job, Lisa. Keep the great work, and I look forward to seeing you on the 18th.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break, and we come back on the other side. We're going to turn the page to NBA hoops. Coach Jimmy Fly Hellman is going to weigh in with his thoughts on the NBA plan and NBA playoffs. So stay with us. Welcome back, and now to NBA hoops, where the NBA play-in tournament is going on at the same time of our taping, setting us up for the NBA playoffs. And here with it is our resident all-knowing basketball guru and analyst, Coach Jimmy Fly Hellman of HSRN. Jimmy, welcome back.
Always a pleasure.
Now, Jimmy, at the time of our taping, we had the play-ins going on, and all the home teams have won so far.
Yeah, they've held court, so it's an advantage. Obviously, to play at home, especially in a one-and-done situation. So now you got New Orleans got to play out in LA for the right to, play Phoenix in the first round of the playoffs. And what you got on the other side of it, Cleveland hosting Atlanta to play, for the right to play Miami. Those games will go on Friday night. And then Saturday, the ball starts rolling.
Now, admittedly, we joke about the play-in tournament, but the intensity of this tournament is exciting because it's almost like the NCAA, like one and done, except for maybe, if you're Clippers, then you get another chance, but things of that nature. So you see a different type of intensity because, if you don't win, you gone fishing. Season over, no more possibility of anything. So whereas it might have seemed like a bad idea initially, I'm kind of enjoying it. What about you?
Well, the season should have been over. Like the Wiz, because I think Chuck and Shaq said it best when Minnesota was dancing up and down on the tables like they had just won the national championship because
now, Coach, I'm gonna take umbrage with that. I was talking about that with my son. Patrick Beverly has been an underdog and overachiever his entire career, and he got a chance, and he didn't go politically correct. He had a team that cast him away. and he was happy about knocking them out of the play-in tournament. And
no
so
problem.
will we begrudge St. Peter's for celebrating as a 15 seed, getting their wins in the NCAA tournament? He was an underdog.
I ain't gonna begrudge St. Peter's because that's the center. This is professional basketball. These people are being paid big money. College players are getting paid little money unless they go to Duke. But that being said, Mr. Beverly, I think he got fined about 50 grand. The MF he was throwing out there after the game. But anyways, they got to play Memphis. I don't see them getting past them. So, get the fishing rods right there in the back of the trunk. Go get it out.
But with the amount of youth and enthusiasm with that matchup, I think it'll be probably a lot of bad basketball, but I think it'll be exciting basketball simultaneously, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. No, Minnesota can score. I mean, backcourt with Edwards and D'Angelo Russell won that game.
Yes.
Anthony Towns didn't do a whole lot of anything in that game, and they were guarding him with small forwards a lot of the time. So no, Memphis, that Memphis is a team to watch coming out of the West. So, if somebody's going to get upset, they might be the team to, benefit from that.
Now, what do you think about Atlanta hitting their stride? They've got to go to Cleveland. They say they may have Jared Allen back. Who do you like in that matchup?
Well, I like Cleveland. I mean, Atlanta's hitting their stride. They play no defense. They can score 120, 30 points against, bad team like Charlotte that plays no defense either. Cleveland plays defense. And if Allen, I think they'll win without Allen, but if Allen's in the middle, Cleveland's a formidable opponent. They might have took Brooklyn down had Allen played in that playing game, because that guy's a presence in the middle scoring, but on the defensive end, you're not, it's not a layup line coming in that rim with him and Mosby, the rookie. He's a shot blocker as well.
So what do you think about the matchup with Brooklyn going up against Boston? Boston having to play without Williams, likely.
Yes. Well, see, that's why I told you, kept telling me the last couple of weeks, who you like. And I kept telling you until they finished the regular season, because it was so tight at the top of the Eastern Conference and how the seedings were going to play out, it came down to the last game. Because Milwaukee had beat Boston, got to the second seed, but then lost, and then Boston reemerged into the second spot, which this play, when you look at it, now you got a Boston-Brooklyn series in the first round. It's really an Eastern Conference final. That's where you want to see these two teams meet. But whoever survives it is more than likely looking at Milwaukee in round 2, which is another Eastern Conference final matchup. So the beneficiary of how the seedings played out is Miami. They're sitting at number 1. They'll get Cleveland and Atlanta in the first round, which is a typical, 1-8 matchup. And Philly and Toronto, I'm calling it right now. And I'm not saying because James Harden. I'm saying Toronto. The reason I'm saying this is because Philly has home court advantage. They better win all 4 games at home. Thibault is not vaccinated. He did not play at the end of the regular season in Toronto. He can't travel with the team. So now they got to insert Danny Green, who should be playing for the Lakers with the Jericho crew, because he's got nothing left in the tank. So now they got to put him in the starting lineup. Thibault is a top 5 defender in the league. You're taking him out of the lineup, and Toronto was no joke. They got players that can play, and half of their team played when they won the NBA title. And Coach Nurse, they got a quality coach. I throw something out, Janae Hayes. It's going to be a combination of James Harden if they lose and Doc Rivers. Hear me out. Comrade Braun this week, he got nothing else to do, so he's out there tweeting, talking about Mark Jackson as my coach. Don't believe that lie. That's a smoke screen because he's taking so much heat for his GM moves last year. He don't want no parts of this now. That's why he threw that out there so everybody run to it.
Mm-hmm.
Doc Rivers will be the next coach of the LA Lakers because they're going to lose. He's going to act. Look, the Philadelphia 76ers have blown 7 times this season, the most of any team in the NBA, 15-point leads in a game. They've been up 15 points or more in games and have lost 7 times. Now, let me go back to my memory bank. Doc Rivers, LA Clippers, up 3-1 on Denver, up 15-plus points in game 5, 6, 7, and lost every one of them games. Everybody blamed the players. No, Doc Rivers ain't that great a coach. He's just smart enough wherever he goes, the team is already stacked and loaded. Me and you coach them teams, just hit the button and get 50 wins. But when he gets into playoff time, and that's why I think I'm picking Toronto as an upset winner in round 1, taking Philly down.
Janae, let's move it out west where the Clippers have a chance to earn the play-in spot as they are going to play New Orleans to try to get the 8th spot. And then if they get that, they go up against Phoenix and potentially with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Do you see that as a positive byproduct of the play-in tournament to have that type of matchup in the first round? Janae?
Oh, me. Oh, I didn't know you'd be throwing. I guess that's a positive, and it also gives them an opportunity to get their teams loaded. But first things first, you have to win. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, just like they just lost against Minnesota. So you have to win. So yeah, it sounds good, but they got to get past this next opponent and then get to match up against Phoenix. So I don't think you can put the cart before the horse. And so it sounds good that you get more time, but you have to take care of the business at hand. And I don't think that that's a guarantee at this point in their season. They looked good, but they relied heavily on playoff P, and then they still lost. So, I don't know how that matchup bodes for, this next game.
Yeah, they're going to have a problem with New Orleans. That's not a gift. New Orleans, the trade that they got McCullough in there, that's what they needed. They got a point guard that can run the show and score. And you got Ingram on the wing, and is it Valanciunas, the big man? Oh, so they got the 3 positions you need to succeed: point guard, small forward, and big man. I actually think that New Orleans will give Phoenix a harder time than the Clippers if they get into a series at this point, because everything I'm reading, Kawhi Leonard, he's out on the court doing drills and stuff, but he's not close to coming back.
Who do you think has a higher probability of playing if in the playoffs, Ben Simmons or Kawhi Leonard?
Oh, good question.
Well, I read today that Ben Simmons, that they're saying that potentially he could come back in this Boston series by game 4 or later. So I would think Simmons would be the bet. But see that I go back to that series. I looked at all the numbers, and I crunch numbers. I look at these things, and in the last 10 years, NBA champions, they've had one thing in common. They've had a top 5 offense, top 5 defense. This year, there's nobody that scratches both of them, but the closest one, the Celtics had the number 1 defense and the 7th ranked offense. The numbers tell me that Boston will win this. And that's who I'm going with, right? I'm putting it on record right now. I like Brooklyn, and Brooklyn, look, Brooklyn could blow that up in this first round and move on and play Milwaukee. But I just got a sense from watching Boston that they're not the team that started the season. This is a championship level team. They got the coach from San Antonio, one of Popovich's assistants. They moved Stevens up into the upper office. And he made a couple good moves at the end. They didn't get big names, but they got White from San Antonio to strengthen the backcourt, and they brought back Theus to protect against injury, which they need now because Williams is expected back by round 2. And if he's back by round 2, that solidifies their defense. I mean, they can easily lose to Brooklyn. There ain't no question about that. I'm just looking at how these numbers lay out, and I'm saying I'm going with Boston Celtics. I don't even like the Boston Celtics, but I think they're going to surprise people and cut down the Nets in June.
Wow. So who do you have coming out of the West?
That's a little bit. Look, Phoenix is 4th offensively ranked. Utah actually has the best offense in the NBA. That shocked me when I looked at it. But all those teams, Phoenix, Utah, Memphis, 9, 10, and 12 defensively. So they're in Golden State, they're 5th defensively, but shockingly, they're 17th offensively. They don't have the same team that they had when they won. Draymond Green's no longer playing at that level. And Curry's injured, whether he comes back, to start that series. They need Curry. I try to find a way where who could beat Phoenix. And Golden State would have the experience to do it. I don't trust Memphis. Normally, you've got to take some pain pills before you progress in the NBA playoffs. So I look at it. I'm going to say Phoenix, but I don't like them either. But that's not a certainty. That's why I'm going with Boston. I like the combination of Tatum and Brown and Marcus Smart and that defense. And I think they're gonna emerge and people are gonna be shocked. Don't leave out Miami either. Miami's right there. They're number 3 defensively, and offensively they're number 10. But this whole thing benefits Miami because now they only have to play one of Brooklyn, Boston, and Milwaukee because they don't have to play them. They're going to beat each other. And if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they'll play one team out of those 3 to get there.
So of the teams that have to go through the gauntlet in the East, do you think that going through that gauntlet will tire them out for Miami, if Miami's there, or will it give them the momentum and allow them to make those changes, things that work? They'll have ample opportunity to make all the adjustments so that they can beat Miami to come out of the East.
Probably a little bit of both of what you just said, because Boston, Brooklyn, that's going to be a war. I expect it to go 7 games, and you coming out of that with scars. And then you got the Greek Freak more than likely sitting there waiting for you. All right. And if he starts pounding on you for another 7 games and you emerge out of that, you got Miami, who's a physical, defensive minded team. So whoever comes out of the East, they're going to earn it. Mm-hmm. They will earn it. I think the West is a little easier. I don't think they're no longer the dominant conference anymore, because all the guys from the West got traded or went free agency to the East. Mm-hmm. But the East, remember, the East used to be Braun and the Stooges. He could right in at the beginning of the year, I'm going to the finals.
Well, Jimmy, you have to be very pleased that we had a show where we didn't talk about the Wizards or the Lakers, but I'm going to disappoint you right now. We're going to talk about the Wnba Draft.
What?
Oh, Lord.
Today, they had the first in-person draft in the last, since COVID. And the top 3 picks, which the Mystics traded down to gain a different pick, and still landed 6'5" thoroughbred Shakir Austin with the 3rd pick, Ryan Howard with number 1, and Talisa Smith or Thomas?
From UConn.
It was Talisa from Baylor.
Oh,
she was drafted number 2 overall.
Oh, Alyssa. Ooh, miss her last name.
I think it's Smith.
Smith, yeah.
I think I read. Didn't the Mystics when they traded, didn't they get the 14th pick also?
Yes, and they drafted Williams from
Kristen Williams from UConn.
From UConn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, see, to me, Coach Tebow, whenever he's done with that, Ted needs to bring him over when he gets his house, because this guy makes smart moves. Player development, drafting people, trading picks to get, he makes smart decisions. That's the kind of guy I want in the front office with the Wizards. So they like to keep people in house. Let's use that guy when he is ready to retire from the WNBA.
All right, Coach Foster, you've got Boston over Phoenix.
Yeah, and don't write Phoenix in stone, but I just can't see who's going to beat them. Donacic's out against Utah in the first game, and he may be out that whole series. So, injuries come into this once you get started. But the Boston Celtics, the numbers tell you, if you were betting money, to put it on them.
I'm going with the Greek Freak and his group for a repeat. What about you, Janae?
I'm going with the Lakers. Oh.
What, in 2030?
I think I'm gonna go with heart over head and just go with hometown and say, let's go Nets.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Philly when you said heart over head.
No, heart. So then, those Harden and Hart don't coexist.
Oh, James Harden, the Tin Man. He's looking for a heart.
Heart, right.
Well, Doc Rivers, don't be surprised if he's out in La La Land next year.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I know you enjoyed it. It was informative and action-packed. And you can look forward for more coverage of the NBA playoffs, special features, and interviews with the players and coaches from the high school, college, and professional basketball teams in the metropolitan area on future shows.
And remember, if it's happening on the court, we'll definitely be on the ball. And for all you aspiring hoop stars, remember that getting your education is the first step to making those basketball dreams come true. So until next time, I'm Janae Hayes.
And I'm Andrew Dyer for the Roundball Report. Good night.